Before you take on any big exercise like a squat or a deadlift, you want to make sure that you warm up the muscles around those big joints. If you just jump into doing squats and deadlifts without a proper warm-up, you'll get away with it for a while possibly, but eventually you're going to get yourself injured and nobody wants that. So I'm just going to show a real quick warm-up that I like to do. And I emphasize quick because I don't like people spending 10-20 minutes warming up. I don't think that that's necessary. I think that they're probably doing a lot of stuff that isn't really giving them much value. I like to be able to do my warm-up in 5-10 minutes with some specific stuff. This is by no means the end-all be-all of hip warm-ups. I'm just showing the stuff that I like to do. The first thing I like to do is called band walks or monster walks, and you can do these in any plane of motion that you want, and I actually prefer to move my legs around in many different ways. I don't really have a certain pattern that I use. As long as you're keeping the tension out on the band, moving around in circles, moving laterally, moving forward, back, pointing your toes, pointing your heels, you're going to feel it a lot in your hips and glutes, and it gets those muscles really firing well. So don't overthink this exercise. Buy a band that's cheap and just put some resistance into your hips and move around. I think you'll be surprised how it actually feels when you're done. Next, I'll do the lateral lunge and reach. This takes a little bit of balance to get used to, and you don't want to be doing this too fast. The biggest thing is that when you kind of get into your sumo squat position, you don't rush it, you slide laterally, get up onto the ball of your foot with your trailing leg, keep your balance, move yourself side to side so that you're stretching out your lats and your obliques and your psoas and your hip flexors, and you should be doing movement here is the point. You don't want to be just going into a static position and holding that, because I don't think that really does that much. So don't be scared to move around. If you're keeping your hips low, moving laterally, and reaching, you're doing it right. Now we have the curtsy lunge. It's named that for obvious reasons because it pretty much looks like you're doing a curtsy. So you want to step behind your front leg and drop your knee down till it almost touches the ground. This is not meant to be done fast. You're just trying to get a nice smooth movement. If you find yourself losing your balance and falling side to side, having to touch your hands down on the ground, it most likely means you're trying to do it too fast. Slow down and concentrate on quality movement. Now we have hip extensions. If there's one exercise that I see that is done way too fast, it's hip extensions. People tend to think the whole idea of the movement is to get your hip as high as possible. The idea is to get your hip flat and focus on squeezing your glute. That might mean at the top you need to squeeze a little harder and go up a little bit more, but if you're going fast, you're not going to do either thing. You'll most likely feel it more in your lower back. The technique is squeeze from the bottom. When you're at the top, make sure you're feeling your glute being squeezed. If you aren't, give it a little bit extra squeeze and hold it. Then lower under control. You don't need to do a lot of reps with these, maybe 5 to 6 per side. Last up in the warm-up sequence is the Bulgarian split squat. Find a bench that's about as high as your knee. The trailing leg goes on the bench with the top of your foot flat against the pad. Your front foot will remain flat on the ground. As you lower down, try and touch the trailing leg's knee to the ground. Your back will have a very slight incline, but your hips and your back will remain in a straight line. So that whole sequence shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes, maybe even 5, depending on how many reps you choose to do. You want to be moving from exercise to exercise. There's no reason to be resting in between sets, in between exercise. Just make it into a circuit, smoothly go through it. You're not trying to make yourself tired. You're trying to get yourself warm. So